Thank you so much, Frank, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for coming to the talk today. My name is David Goldberg. I'm an associate professor at San Diego State, and I'm excited to be able to share with you our work on the Equitable AI Alliance. This is a project that's aimed at understanding the sort of educational, teaching, and learning needs of our students as it pertains to AI. We originally started a project at San Diego State, my institution, but have since collaborated with and spread our project into UCSD with some of the wonderful colleagues in the room today, as well as to San Diego Community College District. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're all working together to better understand our students and build our resources for them as pertains to AI. For the first part of the discussion today, I'll share some background about SDSU's AI student surveys and also talk about the surveys that will be done soon at UCSD and SDCCD. Our AI surveys at SDSU were originally to get a pulse on where our students were at on AI. What were they thinking and feeling about it? Were they already using it? What were they using it for? And what did they want from AI? These surveys are the largest known surveys in higher education on AI, which originally was well past our expectations, but our bar for ourselves on these surveys keeps going up and up to expand the survey and to learn a little bit more each time. We first launched this in fall of 2023, but we'll also share data from our replication of this in fall of 2024, where we can see a little bit of the change over time. Together with these other institutions, San Diego State, UCSD, and SDCCD, we formed what we're calling the Equitable AI Alliance, which is all of us working together towards this common goal on AI and education, and trying to use what we've learned from the survey and other resources to better serve our students. So the AI surveys are one part of that, having a common survey across our institutions to see how are our students similar and different. And when students maybe transfer between institutions, go, for example, from the community college into a four-year university, what do they know? How well prepared are they? And how can we help them to take the next steps? Taking those next steps on AI literacy, we've also prepared an AI micro-credential course. It's a small couple-hour training on basics of AI. It's not for coders necessarily, but just for anyone who's interested in learning more about AI to get their feet wet, to learn what is AI really? What does LLM mean? What are these basic things and concepts in AI, and how can we use them more effectively? And finally, I'll talk about our custom AI tools that we're building together. UCSD already has kind of led the way on this one, but we're hoping at SDSU and SDCCD to build some custom AI tools for our students as well. So first, our original AI survey. In 2023, we started this project as sort of institutional research. So we knew that the world had changed since ChatGPT came out and that our students were probably using AI in some way, but we didn't quite know empirically how much were they using it, what were they using it for, does it vary by what discipline they're in, by what they're majoring in, by maybe demographic factors. So we wanted to get a sense just institutionally of where we were at. We're also interested sort of future or forward looking what our students were thinking for their careers. Were they looking for more AI training? And did they expect our university to provide that training? Were they looking for courses on this? Were they looking for workshops and seminars, other opportunities? What could we do to meet their needs most effectively? Also, what concerns did they have? Some students might have been concerned about job displacement that AI may threaten. They might be concerned about privacy concerns. So what concerns did they have as well on the negative side of AI? We created an initial survey to give our students at San Diego State, where most of our questions were this strongly agree to strongly disagree scale, or Likert scale. But we also had some open-ended questions where we asked students, for example, what resources would you like to see around campus on AI? Or how should professors integrate AI into the curriculum, if at all? And our target for this survey was, it would be great if we could get 10% of our students to respond to this. San Diego State, we have between 35 and 40,000 students. So we were thinking 10% would be great, maybe to get a representative sample. We got way more than we anticipated. We got 7,811 responses, or about a 20% response rate in 2023. Part of that is the moment that we're in, that AI is interesting and students have a lot to say and to share about it. But also part of that is, I think, some good things we did as an institution, that we had the president's office, that we had the student government also interested in our project and helping us with it to help spread the word and encourage others to participate in this project. So as of the time, again, 2023, that 7,811 was the largest known survey in AI in higher ed. There were a couple of other efforts that we knew about to compare to. One of them was in Sweden. They did a nationwide survey across several universities across the country. They got about 5,900. And they also did one in Australia, again, nationwide across a couple of different institutions where they got about 1,100. Just in San Diego, just our one student body, we managed to do better than both of those, about both of those combined, which is a real testament to, again, the institutional willpower behind the project, but also a really good opportunity. How can we take this model of this survey that's been so widely distributed, that we have so much data about our students, and build further from it and spread that to other institutions, see what we can learn about students and higher ed kind of more broadly. So together with UCSD, San Diego State, and San Diego Community College District, we formed what we're calling the Equitable AI Alliance to try to understand, again, these AI educational needs better, and to work together for this sort of common cause for our students and our educational communities. Together, we submitted a grant proposal for $1.5 million for the California Learning Lab AI Grand Challenge, which I'm proud to say we got funded for, and we're going to be working on together over the next couple of years. So we now have even more funding and support credibility to go behind our project, and want to expand from here again to other institutions, California, in our country, and even internationally, as well as building better and more complete AI resources for our students. So the first part of that is doing this needs assessment, doing this survey each year at each institution. We've done this for 2 years now at San Diego State, but intend to spread this to UCSD and SDCCD and more. We have some other institutions that are also adopting our same survey language and our same model, but we would welcome others. And so I'll say this again, but to preface, if anyone in the room would like to do this survey at a different institution that hasn't done it before, we would love to help you do that and to facilitate, and we are happy to share the survey details with you, tell you what we've learned, what went well and what went wrong, and to do everything we can to make it easy for you to do it at your institution so we can all benefit from it. The more we learn, the more we can track how much there's a velocity of change, how students' needs and perceptions of AI are changing, and what that looks like in different demographics and different geographies. Based on what we learned from that survey, we're creating AI literacy training. So one of the common themes that students are telling us is they're interested in learning more about AI, they want to get more training and tools, but they don't quite know where to get it yet. Institutional change on campus, making new courses, making new majors, takes time and doesn't happen overnight, but ChatGPT kind of did happen overnight. So students are expecting us to update the curriculum and to give them more resources. They're asking for it, and so this is maybe the beginnings of trying to meet that need and give them that literacy training. Finally, the last part of our alliance is AI access, where we're trying to create our own models to help our students have institutional access to AI. So there's a UCSD model that is kind of at the forefront, the pioneer in this, as well as some sister models we're creating at San Diego State and San Diego Community College District. So a little bit more about the results of our survey and what we've learned. Again, 2023 was version 1 of our survey, which we had 7,811 students responding to the survey. In 2024 at San Diego State, we expanded this in a couple senses. One sense is we did even a little bit better on the response rate. We got up to 26% instead of 21, so even a little couple points better from lessons learned and doing a better job distributing the survey. But something that we also did is expanding the survey to faculty and staff. Students were our first priority when we started the survey. We just really wanted to know where they were at. But some of the faculty and staff at our institution said to us, why not us too? We also have things to say about AI, and we have our own needs and training that we might want. So we've expanded this to faculty and staff as well. And we got about 2,000 of those at San Diego State responding in fall of 24, which is about the same response rate of about 26%. One of the things that was striking to us is if we compare across those three groups, students, faculty, and staff, the percent of them that say that they're now regularly using AI is almost identical between those three groups. It was 68% for students, 69% for faculty, and 67% for staff. So however likely you are, however likely your colleagues are to be using AI, students are about equally likely to be regularly using it themselves, almost mirroring where faculty and staff are at. They may have some differences in terms of how comfortable they are with it, how they see it affecting their careers, but they're just as likely to be adopting the technology. This is a brief snapshot, again, just of how we got those response rates at San Diego State. So getting that response rate on this survey, we want to give credit to these different bodies that helped us to kind of pump up the numbers and to spread the survey. The Associated Students is our student leadership on campus who help spread from their kind of social media channels. We also have the Center for Teaching and Learning at San Diego State and San Diego State Senate, as well as some CSU support from the CSU wide system that we also collaborate with. So all of those things together go into making the survey what it is and to getting those numbers as high as they are. One of the things we worried about in our conceptualization of the survey is how representative it would be of kind of the average student or of the wide array of students that we get on our campus. Thinking about AI, I would have anticipated that a lot of scientists and engineers would have had a lot to say about it, and that they might be overrepresented in the survey results, that maybe it would be all dominated by computer scientists and engineers who were really big adopters of AI and had a lot to say about it. The wonderful thing about our results is that that wasn't really the case. On the SDSU percentage column, this is the percentage of our campus body that falls into each of these colleges. And the survey percentages are what we saw in our actual empirical survey results. And the wonderful thing is that those numbers are generally pretty close to each other. Just to pick an example, the College of Science was one that I worried about, that the scientists would really be the big adopters of AI. They'd respond more likely to the survey. They're 17.7% of our university, and they're 18.7% of our survey responses. So it's not exactly perfect, but it's about as perfect as we could have gotten. So we're pretty confident in what we're saying, that it's representative of the wide array of students that we get. Also at San Diego State, we've got two campuses. The main one that people know about is the one that's in San Diego proper, but we also have a smaller second campus in the Imperial Valley, about 2 hours to the east of here. We did spread the survey to both of the campuses and asked students in both to complete it. And the numbers also match up there as well. So about 97 at our main campus versus 3 at Imperial Valley, both the SDSU numbers and the survey numbers. So a couple of the highlights of the survey, big lessons learned that we took from it. Students see AI as important, which wasn't a surprise to us, but it's good to put a number on it and to quantify that effect. 71% of our students said that they think AI would become an essential part of most professions, and 58% said they think it will have a significant role in their future career. Something we thought was interesting is that there is a little bit of a gap between those numbers. Students think that AI is important kind of broadly, but some of them don't think it's important for them personally. But even that 58% number, most of our students were saying that they think it's going to have a significant impact on their career. And if that's the case, they're very likely to need training on how to use it effectively. Students are using AI. 68%, as I said before, is our number that say that they're regularly using it in some capacity. And a slightly smaller number, although still substantial, 48% say they're actually using it in their coursework right now. Some of that is probably because faculty encourage them to do so, certainly if you're taking an AI-related course. Some of that is probably without encouragement, and students are still using it anyway as part of their routine. We saw that generally students are saying that the professors do not encourage them to use AI. Just 26% say that their SDSU professors actually encourage the use of AI. That's something that we've got to kind of think about and consider as an institution, but also it's discipline specific. If you're in a computer science course, obviously using AI is going to be more likely, whereas if you're in a more liberal arts course, maybe less so. So there's some disciplinary reasons for that, but it is notably smaller than some of those other figures. We also asked students which AI tools they were currently using. from a list that we developed. So we thought about what are the most common AI tools sort of in general and asked students from that list, pick which ones of these you're using or not using. The most common tool was ChatGPT, no surprise to anyone. But the second most commonly used tool was a little bit of a surprise to us, which was Grammarly. Grammarly, if you're not familiar with it, is a language and writing assistance tool. It's not the sort of chatbot that ChatGPT is for general purpose, but it's specifically for writing purposes. There are a lot of value adds for this for students for whom English is not their first language. If they're writing maybe an essay for a course and they're trying to get the language for it just right, Grammarly might be a common or popular tool for them to use for that purpose. We also asked students if there's any AI tools we missed, AI tools that they were using that we didn't think of in our original list. And the most commonly suggested one was Snapchat, which we did not think of or consider as an AI tool. But thinking what students are thinking, there is now Snapchat filters where you can make your face look like a cat or something if that's what you're into. So they're using AI tools even when, it's not what our professors would think of as AI tools, but they're still finding them in other places and they're aware of that usage. So not insignificant portions said, yeah, we're using AI, it's Snapchat AI. We found that although students of all majors were generally willing to write in and respond to the survey, that the major did matter and that some majors were more warm to AI than others. On our university, engineering and business in particular were very warm on AI, whereas College of Education or College of Arts and Letters were less warm on AI. To some extent, that's what you would expect. Sometimes the differences were not huge, but that was generally the direction that we saw. We also saw that age mattered. We have a lot of non-traditional students at SDSU who come back to school later in life. We found that older students are more likely to be sort of engaged in the popular news about AI, to be following the news and trends, kind of learning about what's going on in the world. And they're also the most interested in getting SDSU resources to learn more about AI in their coursework. Finally, we also found that the students' background matters. There was a pretty big effect with international students where they were much more warm on and more interested in AI. They were more likely to adopt it. They were more likely to be using it versus our domestic students. Interestingly, there was not a large effect for in-state versus out-of-state. If you're from California versus from New York, it didn't really seem to matter. But from the United States versus from another country, international students seem to have a different experience. To Frank's number from earlier, students are saying that they want training on AI. It was a slight majority of them, 52%, who expressed they want to receive formal university training on AI, a slight majority of our students. And that 52%, of course, it varies by the field that the student is in, but even in fields like liberal arts, where it's not as obvious that a student would be learning AI by default, a pretty substantial portion of them say that they want to be learning AI as well, because they see it having a substantive impact on their future. And to that point, most of our students don't feel that we're currently teaching them enough about AI to meet their current needs. Just 28% of them said that they're currently getting adequate AI training opportunities. That means there's a pretty large gap we need to fill of making sure that we're providing the resources or giving them the course options to learn more about this if they see it as such a big part of their future. Couple more comments on the differences between groups. As I mentioned, there's some differences between fields. STEM versus non-STEM is kind of our one way to group it. We also saw some differences along the lines of gender. Male students tended to be more warm or more comfortable with AI versus female or non-binary students. There's one chart on this at the bottom of the slide just to show a particular example of it. We asked students to rate their agreement with the statement, AI technology is too complex for me to grasp. Men, 15% of them about agreed with that statement, and for women it was about 29% agreed with that statement. And for another gender, we are even higher at 38.5. So along those gender lines, there's a difference in confidence on AI, likelihood to adopt it as well. I mentioned international students as well. They're more likely to adopt and to use AI-powered tools. You can see we asked this question, I regularly use AI-powered tools or applications in my work and studies. 47% of our domestic students agreed with that, compared to 71.9% of our international students, a far higher percentage for international. We also saw that graduate students more likely to adopt AI, more warm on it than undergraduate, and San Diego-based students at our main campus were more likely to adopt than at our second Imperial Valley campus. We also saw, in terms of equity, some evidence of an AI digital divide, that students who come from different backgrounds and who have different resources, that may affect the extent to which they adopt AI and that it affects their educational experience. So one way that we got at this in the survey was we asked each student, what technology or smart devices do you own? Things like smartphones, laptops, tablets, etc. And we looked at the number of smart devices they own versus how they felt about these different dimensions of AI. And what we found is the more smart devices you have, the more likely you are to be warm on AI, the more likely you are to be comfortable with it and to adopt it. So just to pick one example here, we asked students if AI has positively affected their learning experience at SDSU. The more smart devices you have, the more likely you are to agree with that statement. If you're surrounded by this technology all day, it's more easy for it to affect your learning experience in a positive way. Students also expressed some concerns along these lines about who's going to pay for AI. They know now that there's the regular free ChatGPT versus the paid one and similar ideas for these other AI tools. And they were concerned what happens if some students can pay for the pro version and other students can't. Or if the university is offering this as a university resource, does that mean that there's going to be a fee increase where somebody's got to bear the cost of that AI tool? Who is that somebody? Well, it's the students in terms of their tuition and fees. So there's a couple of quotes that they gave us here at the bottom, concerned about the fee increase, that it could give some an unfair advantage, and what if some are able to afford the technology and others are not. Here's a couple more of the qualitative statements that the students gave us on their experiences with AI in teaching and learning. And a kind of overall theme that we got from this is that students feel that there's a lot of eyes on them to see if they're using AI or not, and that professors and instructors don't really trust them to use AI in a responsible way. There's a lot of concern about AI being used for cheating, which teaching my class, I understand. I certainly don't want my students to do all of their homework assignments with ChatGPT and not learn the core of the assignments. But also, it's not fair to them to instantly jump to the conclusion that they've cheated if there isn't any evidence for that conclusion. So students have said they're disoriented, they don't know what's allowed or not, that it's unclear to them where the line is and what sorts of use are allowed or not allowed. One quote that really resonated with us, please just tell us what to do and be clear about it. One way or the other, doesn't necessarily matter what the policy is, but just come up with a policy and tell us the policy. Similarly, as I mentioned, they feel distrusted. One student said, if I write a really good essay, will I be accused of AI usage? And there's a very common theme that students feel if you do something well, someone's going to jump to the conclusion that they did it with AI. Speaking very anecdotally about my time as a college student, I remember as a college freshman, I wrote an essay on something, and my professor handed back the paper and said, "This is a really good essay. You wrote it yourself, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "It was really good, so I thought like maybe you copied it from somewhere, so I was Googling sentences out of your essay, but no, you really wrote it." I said, "Yeah, I really wrote it." It's the most backhanded compliment that, I didn't believe that you could write it yourself because it was too good, but I guess you did write it yourself, but I thought you were cheating. And that's kind of what our students, my professor at the time didn't have the AI concern specifically, but it's kind of what students are facing today. If they do a good job, somebody's worried, did they do a good job legitimately, genuinely, or did they cheat in order to do a good job? And jumping to that conclusion. This slide is a little bit about the velocity of change that we see between the 2 years. So as a reminder, we started fall of 2023, and we did a replication fall of 2024. So these are all the same questions both years, just looking at what the difference is from 23 to 24. So not surprisingly, adoption increased over that year. The two most popular tools both years were ChatGPT and Grammarly in that order, but ChatGPT in particular about doubled in its adoption among our students, and Grammarly increased pretty substantially as well. More students than a year ago are using AI actively in their studies, 48% versus 38%, and encouragingly for us, a growing percentage of them say that it's positively affecting their educational experience in their use of AI. A question that we asked in sort of a negative sense is we asked students, is your curriculum lacking adequate exposure to AI? And at least at San Diego State, that portion is shrinking. So we've made some progress versus a year ago in addressing that, but we've got a ways to go because 45% of our students still think that it's lacking. A growing percentage say that their professors encourage the use of AI, which is what we would expect, although 26% is not a lot. A growing percent say that they have seen opportunities to learn about AI around campus, which is also what you would expect, but still some work to do. And finally, the percent that say AI will become an essential part of most professions, interestingly to us, was a number that didn't change at all 2023 to 2024. 71%, for whatever reason, seems to be the level that the majority of our students, and precisely that 71% number, think it will become an essential part of most fields of study. On the qualitative side, a couple more comments that our students gave us, and we editorialized here a little bit by putting these into some comic strip styles and kind of imagining our students saying these in some social contexts. But they discussed this idea that I mentioned on the previous slide, that the curriculum has to change and adapt to reflect that AI is a part of the world now. So they say the curriculum's got to adapt to the times and tools. Teaching students how to properly use the technology seems to be the best option. It can improve people's lives if we use it intentionally, but also, will we be taught skills, or will those who are unaware or don't have access be at a disadvantage? Again, the difference between maybe having ChatGPT Pro or not having it, and how could that affect their educational outcomes? They're great in the class, they're great on the curve if they've got the tool versus if they don't. One more quote from students that was just sort of a dagger in my heart. Ensure professors cannot unilaterally ban a technology because they're too lazy to restructure the same assignment they've been using for 10 plus years. Ow. But I get it, because I have that laziness every semester of, can I use the same assignment from last semester and just modify it a little bit around the edges? But we can't. You've got to change things a little bit and modify them and keep them up with the times. And there's the concern of making sure that we're doing our part as educators to meet the moment and the needs that our students have. So I mentioned at the start, our survey at San Diego State, we hope, is a model, but a model that we intend to share with others and that we make freely available for others to replicate as well. Here are 25 institutions around not only the country, but the world that are doing or have already done replications of the San Diego State survey. Anybody is welcome, if it's appropriate to do so, to make some modifications to the survey. For example, the community college district has only community college students. They don't have graduate students, so they had a different set of questions than we did, which is totally appropriate. And other institutional contexts might make sense that you need to make some changes here and there. But by and large, these 25 schools are doing very similar surveys to what we did at San Diego State, and that lets us make bigger claims about higher ed in general. How are students feeling, not just at this one school in San Diego, but everywhere? And how does it vary across these demographics or across these geographies? We are just starting to get the results from some of these surveys, and there's a lot of data that we haven't had time to analyze quite yet. But just as some examples, we've gotten some survey results from these other institutions that have already done the same survey, and we look at what's similar and what's different between these different institutions. So for instance, one thing that sticks out to me is ChatGPT usage. It's higher at San Diego State than at the other schools that also did the same survey, but it's pretty high at all of them, even though there's some higher and some lower. Grammarly usage might vary depending on the international population at the school, students for whom English is the second language, and you can see some of that effect in the Grammarly usage as well. So as we get more data on these things, we can try to figure out what are the causes for students agreeing or disagreeing with certain statements, for having certain needs and certain preferences. And the more data we can add to this, the more we all learn. So again, to anyone who is interested in doing a similar survey at another institution, call me, let me know, email me. We'll be happy to make it as easy for you as possible. We'll share everything we have and try to work together to all benefit from it. About the survey data, we do make the survey data available on the web for others to access. So I've given some snapshots and some glimpses into parts of the survey data, but we asked a lot of questions that we won't have time to get into today. If you're interested in looking at the survey data yourself, you can find it at aisurvey.sdsu.edu, or the enormous QR code on the slide will also take you to the same place. And we have the survey data in a couple different formats. One format is a dashboard where you can put in certain filters and say, I'm interested in specifically graduate students or specifically students who majored in business or whatever your filter is that you're interested in. We also have a chatbot tool using AI to analyze AI, which will pull up some representative responses from the students' qualitative comments and try to synthesize those for you. Our chatbot tool actually runs on NRP. In its backend using Kubernetes. And I can briefly just show you a demo of our chatbot tool. Live demos never work, so fingers crossed. But our chatbot tool is, since it's a NRP day, actually running on NRP, and because of that resource, we're able to offer this interactive tool. So our chatbot, we've tried to hedge and put some responsible usage guidance on this, and to say, any AI tools, any chatbots have flaws, and none of them are going to be perfect. We actually asked our chatbot to write its own disclaimer, and we thought its disclaimer was pretty good, so we put that on the page just as a starting point to make sure that people know to take it with a grain of salt and to always double check. But once you're on this page, you can interact with this chatbot that, again, is running on NRP, and you can analyze any of the open-ended survey questions that we asked by selecting it from this dropdown. So not very creatively here, but I could just ask something like, what are students' main concerns about AI? And it'll actually dynamically go through our database of the students' responses, try to pull up using a RAG model what the most relevant responses are to the query, and then summarize for you what students were saying while pulling up some of those quotes. So students, in this case, said that there's a concern of over-reliance on AI, that AI would replace sort of the critical thinking process. There'd be a lack of critical thinking, cheating and dishonesty, job security and fairness, et cetera. So again, please feel free to interrogate these tools and to interrogate our data. We especially like this one being on NRP and think it's fun, but dashboard is great too, just for looking at the quantitative data, the Likert scale data. So we hope that you'll take advantage of those. So where do we go next? Going from the survey data, we wanted to meet part of the students' needs of wanting to see more AI trainings on campus that they could access to learn more about these technologies. So we created what we're calling the micro-credential program at San Diego State. We call it the Triple AI Micro-Credential Academic Applications of AI, which is a short introduction for students, faculty, or staff to take to learn more about AI and get a basic training on it. You don't necessarily need to be enrolled in an SDSU course as a SDSU student who wants to be in this micro-credential, although we have actually started to integrate it into courses. We have a first-year freshman seminar course that our freshman students are automatically enrolled in, and as part of that class, they now start going through the micro-credential and getting some basic AI background from the very beginning of their time at San Diego State. And part of our vision in the alliance with SDCCD and UCSD is that the same micro-credential content could be available to these different institutions, all the students benefiting from the same core content. And again, if they transfer between schools, they have a pretty good common starting point to go from. Our micro-credential has 5 modules that range in time from 25 to 50 minutes, roughly speaking. They start with a very basic overview of what is this AI thing and how does it work? what are these vocab words like LLM and GPT, and what are people talking about when they use these terms? And then we get into how can you use AI in an effective way? We talk about ethics and responsible use. We talk about what AI can do to be productive for your applications with options for different fields of study. We give exposure to different AI tools or apps and ask them to compare and contrast their experience with different ones. And we do some exercises in prompt engineering to make sure they get the most out of those activities. All of the modules have a pretty similar format of read, view, do, where you read through a couple pages, watch a video, and then do some exercises at the end to crystallize your understanding. There's a 2-hour version, which is just read through all the content. You can audit it, but you don't get a badge for doing just that 2-hour read through. We also have a 4-hour version, which comes with a badge that can go on LinkedIn or can go on a resume, and we hope can be a signal to employers that the student has a basic background understanding on AI. So this is now available for all students, faculty, and staff at SDSU, and we're on our way to rolling out at other institutions as well. There is a CSU, California State University wide version of the microcredential, and we're now also sharing with SDCCD and UCSD. And again, as an offer to others in the room, if another institution is interested in this, but you don't have access to it yet, let me know, and we can talk about it and figure out how to move forward. With all of these, there is a cycle of improvement and change because AI is changing and the technologies change as we're writing the microcredential and as we're making the curriculum. So some of the ideas are enduring, but for example, when we first created the microcredential, we were on Google Bard. Not anymore. We've changed over to Gemini, so we've got to make some changes and updates continuously over time. And while the main thrust of the microcredential hasn't changed, there's little updates that are made here and there to the microcredential over time. Again, the CSU-wide version was released in April, and we're hoping to have a public version soon that you would be able to access even without being enrolled in a California higher educational institution. Last part of our alliance together is making some in-house AI tools. So our students told us they're concerned about access to AI tools, particularly access to high quality AI tools and being able to get one that's good, that actually does what they need to do. And so part of what we're trying to do is to build our own AI tools at San Diego State, at UCSD, and at SDCCD. And we have to give a massive credit here to Triton GPT at UCSD as the leaders in this space, creating this first tool that we're kind of using as a model. And SDSU's tool is nearly there. It's on the way, SDSU GPT. And SDCCD is working and thinking about making their own tool as well. So the idea is that this tool has a couple of different functions that it can perform to help students with academic purposes. There's an SDSU assistant, speaking of our SDSU tool now, that can help them sort of navigate things at the university. So I need to pay my tuition. Where do I go for that? And how much is tuition again? I need to figure out my housing situation for next semester. Where can I find that? What classes do we have off for holidays again? When is spring break? So just sort of wayfinding, figuring out what to do on the university website. SDSU Assistant will index the SDSU website, figure out all of that content, and then use it to help people navigate it more effectively. Even as a professor, I was using this the other week, our demo version of it that's not full production yet. Every semester when I plan my syllabus, I have to figure out when are the holidays again that we're not having class. And the SDSU website has that. So our assistant was able to tell me, oh, these are the days that you won't have class on a Monday because it's a federal holiday, and it's easy to slot that into my syllabus without having to find the page and go through all of that myself. So time saver, just making it easier to navigate. Instructionally, the other thing that we're doing is making a teaching and learning assistant. So an AI tool that helps students learn without doing their assignment for them. A tool that tries to tutor them, maybe give them practice problems, guide them through the reasoning and the steps of the assignment bit by bit, but without just jumping to the answer and telling them, this is the solution to the math problem, or here's the essay that you were trying to write. Giving them feedback, helping them improve without jumping to the answer. Likewise, there's sort of a sister faculty-facing tool to help faculty generate content for students, making new quiz questions based on their content, and making sure that they're prepared to teach the course as effectively as possible. Elsewhere on campus, a little bit less teaching and learning related, but there's also a trial of this with the HR departments, trying to streamline creating job ads and job posts. That's also in the works at SDSU. So here's, again, just like a little preview of what this looks like. This is the SDSU tool, but the UCSD tool looks pretty similar as well. So it looks a lot like ChatGPT or any of these large language models. Remembers your chat history, so you can go back and reference a previous chat where it's relevant, and then use that to be more effective as a student, staff member, or faculty member at the university. Briefly, and just in summary, all of the work that I've mentioned here today can be found more information online at trippleai.sdsu.edu, or again at the large QR code that's on the right. So if you're interested in the survey, if you're interested in the micro-credential, or any of the items that I've mentioned today, that site is sort of a one-stop shop for where you can find information about this project that will keep updating with new resources as they come available. As well, we also have some publications that we've written to describe the findings of the survey or other aspects of this work. And there's also a list of publications on that page if you're interested to follow up on those as well. So thank you so much for listening to the presentation. And if there's any questions or discussions at this time, I'd be happy to take them.
Sorry, yeah, it is. You mentioned that international students seem to have a higher comfort level. And I was wondering, in the survey, did you capture country of origin? So you could see like, oh, people from Japan are more comfortable with AI. And is that data, if you did capture it, is it available via that dashboard?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, we don't have country of origin. I think that's something that we might consider adding in for next year. There's a couple of times where we've kind of toyed with what to put in the survey in terms of identifiability, where we don't want students to feel that they're going to be personally identified, and we want them to feel that it's anonymous. And that's one where we're kind of a little hesitant about it for that reason. But I do see why there'd be a great value in it, because if it's culturally dependent, for example, then you could really learn something about that. So we'll consider it for the next one.
Thank you.
Over here.
Thank you. Many exciting projects you're working on. I have been teaching statistics a long time now, and I sort of pride myself that I've kept up to date with the latest in statistics education. I get to teach statistics a lot as a service class to people that are not super excited about statistics. But now with ChatGPT, especially our wonderful access at CSU to ChatGPT, I really want to make sure that I'm going to help my students learn how to use ChatGPT to learn statistics effectively. So I feel like I know how to help them learn without ChatGPT. So I was wondering, what is your source for like the content of your micro degree? How do you know the best methods that students can learn how to use ChatGPT to learn? Because I see my students trying ChatGPT, like tell each other, but the ones that are unconnected are, maybe they have access to ChatGPT, but they don't know how to use it well. So what is a good source? Thank you.
Yeah, our micro-credential program is created collaboratively. So we have a couple faculty members from different parts of campus that collaborate on the creation of the micro-credential and curating the content for it. So, I certainly wouldn't claim to be an expert on teaching in other fields and exactly what's appropriate for them. But we tried for that reason to have not just one person making the course, but sort of a group consensus and kind of iterating and reviewing each other's work to make sure that it's appropriate. The micro-credential is not prescriptive in a lot of ways. It's giving thoughts and suggestions and guidance, but in trying not to be prescriptive, because not just your field, but your teaching style, of course, affects the ways that you may or may not use AI and what's appropriate for your course and how you want your students to learn. So unfortunately, I don't think there's any one answer to how should your students use it or not use it or what's appropriate. It depends on you and what you want. But the micro-credential is there to provide you more resources, or at least ask the thought-provoking questions of, thinking through it deliberately, making sure whatever decision you make, you've really thought it through and made the best decision for your course.
Hi, thank you so much. This was useful. I took screenshots. I saw other people doing that, and I know of campuses that may take you up on the offer to repurpose. I had one question, which is that in some of the survey questions, it seems like you're specifically asking students about generative AI, and that for a lot of them, I imagine that's most of what they have encountered or think of. And I'm wondering whether and how you approach assessing any priming they have or propensity to answer based upon what they know about generative AI versus whether some of their answers are also incorporating a bigger picture of AI, like when you ask them about professions.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we had a couple different thoughts back and forth about that issue. One issue that we have is our students come to the survey or come to us in different places. Some of them have a very crystallized idea of what AI is, and some of them have very little idea. And so we don't really want to try to educate them within the survey about what AI is and isn't, or even to be prescriptive and to draw boundaries about it and say AI is this and it isn't that. So I think in our language of the survey, and this is public, so you can check me on it, but I think in our language of the survey, we've given some examples of AI, which do happen to be generative things. I think we call out ChatGPT, for example, as an instance of AI, but I think we stray away from trying to specifically define it and leave it up to the student's conception of what it is or isn't to them. Most of them, I think, probably assume we're talking about generative AI, but we're kind of leaving it up to the student to define it in their context.
I noticed that you combine fine arts with professional studies in the survey, and I was wondering if you had any ability to differentiate between those two, and with fine arts students, if they were using it for illustrative purposes, were generating art with it.
That's a great question. The reason that it's combined on that slide is because at San Diego State, we have a college, which is called the College of Professional Studies and Fine Arts. So it's grouped in that way just because that's what the college is designated as. Something that we learned in our experience with the survey is we didn't expect, again, to get the response rate that we did. So the very first version we did in 2023, we didn't ask students majors. We thought if we get 3 accounting majors, it's not going to tell us anything. But we got a lot more than 3. So in 2024, a revision that we made is we now ask the major and not just the college. So you absolutely could go in and the dashboard would allow you to do this and look at just fine arts students, isolate that portion, and see how they're feeling about AI. And as well, you could look at which AI tools they're using. Is it DALL-E or something for image generation, or is it something else? I do think, in my imperfect memory of it, they are more likely to be using tools like DALL-E or CapCut, I think was another one that was AI enabled for those kinds of applications.
Thank you for this great work. Are you following up on who are the people who are completing the micro-credentials and the rate of completion?
We do. We have some idea of the rate of completion, but it's not perfect. An issue that we have is that we allow people to audit, and the auditors can read the content, but they're not responsible for submitting all the assignments. You're just kind of going at your own pace and you're reading it. And so they show up as registered for the course, but it's not unexpected that they don't finish all the assignments or that they don't show up as completed on our side of things. So we've tried to kind of learn a little bit more about people's experiences with surveys, to ask them what's working for you or what's not working for you. Did you get stuck on a certain section, et cetera, to try to get more sense of their experience. But that's something that we're constantly thinking about and working towards is how do we make the micro-credential better, more accessible, more appropriate for different fields, make sure that as many people as want to complete it can actually get through it. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Then let's thank David again.
Thank you.